Unit 24. Expression of assertion, emphasis, and objection. In the description of the grammar of a language, we have to differentiate between clause types and illocutionary force of the messages. The major terms in the system of clause type are illustrated in the following. You made a good job of it. Declarative. Did you make a good job of it? Interrogative. What a good job you made of it. Exclamative. Make a good job of it. Imperative. The system is usually discussed under the heading sentence type rather than clause type. However, we will refer to the clause type because in our terminology, a sentence is a group of clauses. For example, in a sentence like "Come with us by all means, but you may find it hard work." It is the separate clauses that are classified for type. Come with us by all means is imperative, and but you may find it hard work, declarative. The sentence as a whole cannot be assigned to any of the four types. Where a sentence has the form of a clause, we can of course talk of the sentence as being declarative, interrogative, or whatever, and it will in fact be convenient in the discussion below to use declarative sentence in preference to the more cumbersome sentence having the form of a declarative clause. A declarative sentence will typically be used to make a statement. An interrogative sentence will typically be used to make a question. An exclamative will typically be used to make an exclamation, and an imperative sentence will typically be used to issue what we should call a directive, a term that covers request, commands, prohibition, instructions. It cannot be too strongly emphasized, however, that declarative, interrogative, exclamative, and imperative are quite different kinds of concept from statement, question, exclamation, and directive. Declarative, interrogative, exclamative, and imperative are syntactic categories. They are terms in a system of clause classes, distinguished from each other by certain features of syntactic structure: subject, position, form of the verb phrase. Statement, question, exclamation, and directive are, by contrast, semantic categories. Statement, question, and directive apply in the first instance to utterance, id est, sentences in context. These semantic categories are distinguished by different criteria from syntactic clauses. By making a statement assertion, I am committing myself to the truth of what I'm saying. In a question, I am intending that the addressee should respond by providing the right answer. By issuing a directive, we are identifying a future action or behavior on the part of the addressee, including refraining from doing something, and seek to bring about that action or behavior. We will first focus our attention on statements assertions. In English, rather than distinguishing simply between positive and negative forms, we must establish a previous distinction between positive and non-positive, or assertive and non-assertive forms, although it is more correctly the context rather than the forms, which is assertive or non-assertive. First, a non-assertive, that is a non-factual situation, can however allow the use of a specific item, as in, if someone rings while I am out, tell them I'll be back by 7. The difference between someone ringing and anyone ringing is, in the conditional clause, a matter of viewing the potential caller as a specific someone or non-specific anyone. 2. The two meanings of any, the lexical item any, has two different meanings, in English distinguished by stress and non-stress. The meaning of stress any is it doesn't matter which, and stress any refers to an indefinite thing or quantity, and means even the smallest number or amount. Although such clauses may appear to be assertive since they are neither negative nor interrogative nor conditional, they are non-assertive in that they are non-factual and refer to a potential or unfulfilled state of affairs. 3. Any, every, either, stressed any differs from every in that every has a meaning of totally or university and is specific, whereas any has a meaning of partially and is non-specific. Stress any is also close in to stress either. The difference between them is that the stressed either selects between two and has the restrictive meaning of no matter which of the two, whereas stressed any selects from more than two and is unrestricted, meaning no matter which. 4. Non-assertive context. Non-assertive contexts include the following. Negative clauses. He didn't do anything. No one did anything. 2. Interrogative clauses. Did you do anything? 3. Interrogative negative clauses. Didn't you do anything? 4. Negative imperative clauses. Don't eat any more and stress any. 5. Imperative with non-specific meaning. Take any you like, stressed any. 6. Comparative clause. She's singing better than she has ever done yet. 7. Conditional clauses. If you ever need a friend, call me. 8. Clauses containing hypothetical should. It's a pity he should feel so shy about asking any questions. 9. Universals. Every student who has ever read anything about the subject knows. Many non-assertive contexts are introduced by a word which is negative, even if by implication. 10. Clauses for negative adjectives. It's untrue, unlikely, incredible that Ed stole anything from the sports shop. 11. Infinitive constructions after to. I'm too tired to walk any farther. 12. Noun phrases introduced by only. Only two people suffered any serious injury. 13. Completives in prepositional phrases introduced by without any doubt. We will now study the expression of emphasis. Emphasis is a feature of language which largely depends on the speaker's emotional state and which is realized by means of different linguistic devices. The most characteristic way of indicating emphasis is by means of focusing on the piece of information which is intended to highlight. We shall call this informative emphasis. However, English also provides the speaker with other means to show his or her emotions by what we shall call emotive emphasis. In this unit, we will only make reference to the latter because the other devices, such as fronting, cleft sentences, passives, etc., are studied in other areas of grammar. The expression of emotive emphasis corresponds to many different areas of the grammar: exclamations, persuasive do in imperatives, interjections, expletives, emphatic operators, and non-correlative so and such. Exclamations. Exclamatives as a formal category of sentence are restricted to the type of exclamatory utterance introduced by what or how. They resemble WH questions in requiring the initial placement of an exclamatory WH element. The syntactic order is therefore upset to the extent that the WH element, which may be object, complement, or adverbial as well as subject, may be taken from its usual statement position and put into a position of initial prominence. On the other hand, in contrast to WH questions, there is generally no subject-operator inversion. Examples: what an enormous crowd came. What a time we've had today. How delightful her manners are. In addition, the WH element, as it is the case of the WH element of the WH questions, can act as prepositional complement. What a mess we are in. Only two words can be used to form the WH element in exclamatory sentences. What as predeterminer in a noun phrase, and how as an identifier or an adjective, adverb, or clause. Exactly the same functions are fulfilled, especially in women's speech, by the emphatic degree items such as determiner and so as intensifier in statements and questions. Finally, exclamatives are very frequently indeed reduced by ellipses to the single WH element. What a terrible win, how encouraging. 2. Persuasive do in imperatives. A positive imperative can be made more persuasive or insistent, especially in British English, by adding do, stressing it before the verb. Do reinforces the positive sense of the imperative. For many people, this persuasive use of do seems more typical of female than male speech. Do have some more tea. Notice in the last example how the let's form is standard and does not enter contrast with the verb to let as a lexical verb. This use of do does not apply in expressions such as the following, in which the pronoun you has been used for emphatic purposes. Do you have some more tea? That is wrong. You don't do that. That's why the asterisk. 3. Interjection. Interjections are purely emotive words which do not enter into syntactic relations. Some of them have phonological features which lie outside the regular system of the language. Way, etc. Their use is mainly to support some reactions or emotions of the speaker, who is often unable to express in lexical words his or her immediate feelings. Some of them are the following. My call for attention. Can you keep quiet? Boo, disapproval. Boo, you are a bad storyteller. Ouch, expression of pain. Ouch, I hurt my leg. Wow, great surprise. Wow, I like it very much. 4. Intensifiers. The intensifiers are broadly concerned with the semantic category of degree. It should be noted that the term intensifier does not refer only to means whereby an increase in intensification. Rather, an intensifying element indicates a point on an abstractly conceived intensity scale, and the point indicated may be relatively low or relatively high. The scale is seen as applying to a predicate or to some part of a predicate. The verbs in question are largely expressive of attitude. It is useful to distinguish two subsets of intensifiers. Amplifiers, maximizers, completely. Boosters, very much. Downtoners, approximators, almost. Compromisers, more or less. Diminishers, partly. Minimizers, hardly. Amplifiers scale upward from an assumed norm. Downtoners have a lowering effect, usually scaling downwards from an assumed norm. Such scaling requires that the item or unit to which the intensifier applies is gradable. Let's consider the different subclasses of amplifiers and downtoners. Amplifiers are divided into maximizers. They denote the upper extreme of the scale, absolutely, altogether, completely, totally, utterly. He is totally unaware of the problem. Boosters. They denote high degree, a high point on the scale. Badly, bitterly, deeply, far, greatly. I'm deeply concerned about the problem. On the other hand, downtoners can be divided into 4 groups. Approximators. They serve to express an approximation to the force of the verb, while indicating that the verb concerned expresses more than is relevant. Example given, almost, nearly, practically, virtually, as good as. He almost passed all the subject. Compromisers. They have only a slight lowering effect and tend to call in question the appropriateness of the verb concerned. Example given: kind of, sort of, rather, enough, more or less. He's kind of shy and reserved. Diminishers. They scale downwards and roughly mean to a small extent. Example given: mildly, partially, partly, quite, only, merely. I partly agree with you. Minimizers. They are negative maximizers. Example given: verily, hardly, little, in the least, at all, I barely know him. 5. Emphatic operators. In this section, we are concerned with the difference between pairs like the following: I'm sorry. I am sorry. You look pale this morning. You do look pale this morning. The second utterance, in each case, resembles prosodically the operator stressed items. But as we can see, the operator does not carry the nuclear force. More importantly, they differ from the majority of those having purely contrastive meaning. Mary will be pleased. The speaker is not here implying that someone has suggested that she will not be pleased. Rather, the speaker, in a style that is sometimes felt to be rather gushing and extravagant, is conveying enthusiasm, a personal conviction about the truth of what is predicted. But the emotion conveyed need not be enthusiasm, but, for example, concern, sympathy, reproach, petulance, etc. The stressing of will would often has the meaning of insistence, as in, John will keep interrupting. 6. Non-correlative so and such. In familiar speech of a style that strikes many people as extravagantly emphatic, the determiner such and the adverb so are stressed so as to give exclamatory force to a statement, question, or directive. In this usage, there is no accompanying correlative clause or phrase. She was wearing such a lovely dress. I'm so afraid that they'll get lost. In consequence, so and such become equivalent to how and what in exclamations. They were so cross. How cross they were. They are such delightful children. What delightful children they are. But so and such can also occur, as the earlier examples show, in questions and directives. Additional emotive emphasis is achieved by assigning a nucleus to so and such. I'm so pleased. Finally, we will refer to the expression of objection, either by means of lexical verbs, discards, markers, or echo questions. A. Objection by means of lexical verbs. Objection is a semantic pragmatic element which shows the disagreement of the speaker to what has been said before. This disagreement can be realized using some verbs which have the illocutionary force of objection. For example, I object to your proposal. I disagree or I don't agree with your view on this subject. I don't share your opinion. B. Objection by means of discourse markers. The other typical way of expressing one's objection to what is being talked is by the use of individual elements, called discourse makers, which serve to modulate what is coming afterwards so that it is understood as being negative. A. I suggest going to the theater tonight. B. Well, I don't think it is a good idea. A. I think this is a perfect place for a shopping center. B. As a matter of fact, I don't think it is. All these elements are, of course, accompanied by the negative forms of the verbs which are being objected to. In fact, these elements just function as attitudinal elements which soften the negative meaning of the verb which follows. The purely negative meaning of the sentence is achieved by the negative auxiliary verb, which very frequently gets the nucleus of the intonation segment and which indicates the objection to the proposition. As a matter of fact, we could use these same discourse makers in other contexts and with different meanings, provided we change the accompanying verbs. C. Objection by means of echo questions. Another way to show surprise or disagreement to what is being said is by means of echo questions. These are interrogative forms which demand a repetition of what has either been not understood or not according to the hearer's expectations. I'm going to buy a new car. A new what? I'm marrying Jim. You are marrying whom? These questions are very common in casual conversation and serve as introduction for more elements against the speaker's proposal. Therefore, as we have studied in this unit, there are many different expressions in English language to show assertion, emphasis, and objection. The most interesting thing is to see the varied devices of the language in the realization of pragmatic semantic meanings beyond the formal syntactic expressions. Of special interest are the English devices to express emphasis, which merge suprasegmental factors and syntactic ones. This area offers a special difficulty for Spanish learners of English, since Spanish organizes emphasis in a different way. Therefore, teachers should be aware of this difficulty and try to override it by making clear examples and by setting relevant exercises. Bibliography: Downing, Locke, 2006, English Grammar, a University Course, Routledge. Himes D. 2005, Models of the Interaction of Language and Social Life Towards a Descriptive Theory, Intercultural Discourse and Communication, The Essential Reading, 416. McFarlane, 2011, What is Assertion? Quirk R. 2010, A Comprehensive Grammar of the English Language, Pearson Education, India. Willis D. 2003, Rules, Patterns, and Words, Grammar and Lexis in English Language Teaching,